Good evening and welcome to Sim Racing Online. You join us here for the finale of the Formula 1 1967 Championship. Wow, it's been a season so far. I've really enjoyed broadcasting this series. Historic tracks on, or rather historic cars on historic tracks. It's been wonderful to go through these wonderful tracks and make the most of these wonderful cars. So, if you haven't been here, where have you been? We have a championship decider. We had a great round at Mosport last time out in the wet, which proved to be a little bit of a deciding factor in what would happen in this round at Watkins Glen today. So we're going to have 60 minutes around this 3.78 kilometre, 2.3 mile circuit. We are using the 1965 version of this circuit. But where have you been? I'll get you up to speed, as it were. So we have in at 60s versions of tracks throughout the world. We started off at Mount Panorama in 1967 and we went to Longford. Both tracks in Australia. They proved very difficult for our drivers, very narrow circuits. Longford being country roads in Australia. Then in the third round we were in France for Clermont-Ferrand, known as Charade, and then for the fourth round we headed to Fuji, the 1968 version, which is had a big bank turn at the start of the circuit, which proved to be very interesting watching these cars go three wide around. And then we headed to what was the 1967 circuit of Mosport, and our admins decided it would be a good idea to simulate what happened in real life at that location. So in Canada on that day in that Grand Prix, it was wet weather, so we had some very interesting racing. Our drivers did find it quite tough. It didn't rain as much as I thought, but yeah, it was still very, very good. And now we're here for the finale of this six-race series. We're at Watkins Glen, the 1965 circuit. So this is the smallest of the Watkins Glen layouts. If you're not familiar with this layout, sit back and enjoy it because it's going to be fast and furious. It's a very tight circuit, and I think our driver's going to really struggle perhaps with overtaking here. So, season standings so far. We do have Maddie Shepherd at the top of the standings with 34 points from Costas Kanzouris. Now, Costas Kanzouris did manage to gain back 1 point, and that in the last race gained back 1 point, and that might become vital for this round. But it is 9 points for a win, and Maddie Shepherd leads by 9 points. So points do go down to 6th place, so it will depend whether Maddie Shepherd goes all out and tries to win this thing and puts it way out of reach, or perhaps it's Costas Kanzouris has to take the win, and that's his only option to take the championship. Something dramatic would have to happen to Maddie Shepherd, but for the rest of the points we have Michael Masaryk in third, Julian Paws in fourth, Tony Talviti in fifth, Lars Hagman in sixth, Jim Cavallo in seventh, Bjorn Hagman eighth, Philip Pichler in ninth, and Romain Laboureux in 10th. So points are in short supply in this league. We get 9 for a win, 6 for second, 4 for third, then 3, 2 and 1 down to 6th place. So there is still places to be made up. Anything can happen in these Grand Prix. They have in the past 6 weeks that we've been doing this on Wednesday. So sit back and enjoy the ride. We are going to be heading onto the track so we can see what our drivers are up to. Just bear with me in 1 second while I can do a few things in the background so I can just share some links and such. Because we've got to promote this. Right, let's post a link there. There we go. That will be lovely. Right, I'll post that up. Okay, so our drivers are out on track at the moment and they are doing their practice laps. So I'm going to head out to track and we'll see what is going on. But before that, I actually forgot, is that we are using the 1967 car set, and the 1967 car set is made up of what is 8 cars. I think it's actually up to 10 now with all the variations. So there's the Brabham BT24 and BT11. Then we have the BRM, the Cooper T79 and the T81. Then the Ferrari 312, Honda RA300, the Lotus 49 Eagle Westlake, and the McLaren M5A. So those are the cars that we will be using in this particular series and tonight. So let's head out on track and see if we can join our drivers on track. So our drivers are out on track at the moment, just doing their practice laps, perhaps on a full fuel. I was a little worried that I wouldn't actually see the track map, but it has since rectified itself, so I will be able to see what's going on. Now I am utilising, as I have been throughout this season, I am utilising automatic cameras, so the game will pick and choose what cameras or what cars we're looking at and what action we're looking at, so I can concentrate on stuff in the background. So the added thing about this series, if you haven't joined us before, is that the drivers have had to take a different car every single round. They can't double up on cars, so car choice has been vital. Now I'm going to look at my cheat sheet in the background here, and I can tell from the numbers that the 2 most popular cars have been the Eagle and the Lotus, which stands to reason really, because they are possibly the fastest cars in a straight line. Looking down the list, I believe it's the Cooper T79 is the least popular, but that did come a bit late on, kind of midway through the season. That was actually added to the cars. The T81 was already there. What else have we got? So the second most popular car was actually the Cooper T81 and the Honda RA300. So those have proved to be popular choices. Another one of the least popular cars has been the BRM. Not a lot of drivers have wanted to take that, but we do have one driver in the field that has decided to take the BRM tonight. So that would make a total of 3 times throughout the season that drivers have taken the BRM. So, as I say, we did have a dramatic round at Mosport last week where it was raining. I was actually expecting there to be a bit more rain than there actually was. It didn't come down as hard as I thought. I suppose lucky for the drivers, but we did have a lot of people, a lot of drivers suffering with the conditions. Also, the track layout. If you don't know Mosport is very tight. The elevation changes are quite severe as well. So it was hard on our drivers. I'm just looking down at the list as well, see if I can find what the result was. So Tony Talviti did actually take the win last time at Mosport Park. Lars Hagman was second, with Kostas Kanzouras, who was second in the championship, and who was still trying to vie for the championship lead at that point, came in third. But championship leader Maddie Shepherd came in fourth. So quite lucky that she did have a spin early on, and I thought that meant it was all over. But with car attrition, we did have a couple of people with a couple of engine failures near the start of the race, a couple of spins, a couple of damaged cars. She was able to make her way back up to fourth and only lose 1 point to her nearest contender. But it looks like she's near the top of the practice times there. It looks like it's very close at the top there. Masaryk currently topping the practice times there. So we're looking at a 58.9. That is very, very quick indeed. I did say last week that possibly we'll be looking at lap times in the 103s, 104s. That seems to be all I can manage, but obviously these drivers are much better than I am and can actually get a sub 58 minute lap time, 58 second lap time. So it's a very short lap here, and there will be in 60 minutes around here. There will be no wet weather for our drivers to contend with. So we do have a couple of absences today, and I'm sure the drivers that are absent will be missing out on an absolute corker of a Grand Prix, because this is one of my favourite circuits, particularly because it was introduced me personally to 60s racing through the game Grand Prix Legends. It was one of the tracks that was one of the demos, I think, that got distributed was Watkins Glen. So this layout, very not too dissimilar from the modern layout, but you'll see that the start-finish straight is in a completely different place to what it is in the modern layout. So they still head up the S's up the hill onto what is the front straight, and it is called the front straight, down into the loop. So that part still exists, but it's the back half of the circuit which is a little bit different. Long sweeping bends rather than the difference, the longer circuit with the boot, as it's called, that we have in modern day. So it might look a bit familiar to you. So Mandy Shepherd coming down what is the front straight down into, as I say, this is the loop here. So on the modern circuit they would be heading off to the left here. This short circuit would still have this back straight, and it is called back straight. But again, they would be turning off or making some sharper turns at the end of the circuit, but these are big sweeping lefts and rights at the end. So into what's called fast bend, and then we come down to the final corner, which is called the 90. So you've got to watch for that curve on the inside line, and it's a little wider on the exits, so you can run a little wide. But turn 1 is going to be very, very tricky, and I expect it's going to be a very tight field out the front. And it does start on a little bit of an incline as well, so drivers have got to be very wary about either rolling forwards, so holding their brake and then getting their clutch bite point absolutely spot on. We have had a couple of people bogging down on the grid, which has made things very, very difficult. I think I've just noticed that we don't actually have any car sounds here, so I'm going to refresh our sounds to see if we can get some car sounds for you. And we're just rolling over to qualification now. Qualification is only about 10 minutes or so. So our drivers, who wants to get out of the pits first? Let's see. So we do have some sound, which is good. We didn't have sound at that start point, so I apologise. So it looks like Lance Hagman is lining up at the end of the pit lane. Very tight pit lane as well. We're not expecting any pit stops, so we can rule those out. So Lance Hagman, our only driver in the BRM today. So actually it looks like Tony Talviti is the first one out on circuit at the moment. So he will be the first to set a lap time. So down the front straight here Tony comes, as we see Michael Maswick coming out of the pits in his Eagle Westlake. So as I say, Eagle Westlake, one of the faster cars on the circuit. Michael Maswick currently third in the championship. And looking down at my cheat sheet as well, see if I can find Michael Maswick in the list. So Michael Maswick has taken the Brabham BT11, the Cooper T81, the Ferrari, the Honda and the Lotus. So those are the cars that he has chosen. Now I can actually pick what camera angles I look at, but sometimes the director will overrule me. So Tony Taubiti first to set a lap time out on track. So through the S's for the first time. Got to watch that curve on the inside there to make sure that you don't hit it and bounce yourself off into the armco. So down the front straight he comes down into the loop for the first time. You come over a small hump there, you get your braking absolutely spot on, because the track does fall away from you. If you touch that grass, you're pretty much guaranteed you're heading off to the fence or the hay bales. And down the back straight he comes. This long left-hander, which might prove to have some drafting down there. So into the sweeping right and then the left, and then the sharpest corner on the track, called the 90, as you would think. It's a right angle and running all the way to the outside of the circuit, and that is the first lap time on the board. That's a 59.28. We have Jim Cavallo putting in a 1 minute to 6 just behind. So who else we got? Bjorn Hagman has just set a time. Good enough for fourth. Phil Brown has popped up to second place in the Honda. So that's a good run for Phil Brown. Another driver is in the 59.7 range in lap time. So now I've seen a little bit of a flicker on the track. Might be a little bit of a glitch, which we'll just have to put up, which I think, but so down the back straight, Phil Brown comes for another go. I'm seeing on the track map that a lot of our drivers are quite spaced out. No one's deciding to go nose to tail. They want a little bit of space out on track. So Maddie Shepherd has now popped up to third on the grid. So championship leader in the Lotus, who's quickly usurped by Phil Brown. So lap time's going to come thick and fast. Costas Kanzouris has now popped up to fourth as Tony Taubiti takes an interesting route around the loop there. So it's Taubiti in first, Cavallo in second, Brown third, Kanzouris in fourth, Shepherd in fifth. So in terms of Tony Taubiti, on my cheat sheet, Tony Taubiti has taken part, I believe, in 4 rounds this season. Keeper T81, the Eagle, the Honda and the Lotus. So he's trying out the Ferrari for the first time. So who else have we got on the grid? We've got our resident French drivers, Romain Lebreau, who's in a Matra inspired Honda. Second in the championship, Kostas Kanzouris in the Lotus 49, the infamous Lotus 49. A very fast car, but as a few drivers found out last week, sometimes a bit weak in the reliability department. We had a few popped engines. So around the loop, Tony Taubiti comes, so it's currently still on top of the timesheets. Got about 4/10 of a second in the hand. So I have seen some updates for, or some upcoming things in progress for this mod. I believe there is going to be a Matra added. Let's believe it's, I can't remember if it's the equivalent of the F1 or F2 class. It's not a car that readily featured out the front. So Michael Masaryk comes across the line, goes up to 4th place. So we have the majority of the drivers sub 1 minute. Shows how slow my laps were when I was lapping around here. Maybe there's been an update to the mod. That's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. So with 4 minutes to go, Tony Taubiti is still in first. Brown is popped up to second place, 4/100ths of a second, so it's tight on the front row. I fully expect there to be 2 by 2. We have had some races this season where it has been 3 by 3. I don't think there is room for 2 by or 3 by 3. So Phil Brown coming across the line. Can he improve? So Tony Talviti did take the lap time for nearly 5/10ths away on one of his laps. So improving all the time as the rubber goes down on the circuit. So a good lap time for Masaryk. But Tony Talviti seems to have this Ferrari hooked up. Obviously, the less times you, or the less races that you do in this series, mean you have a bit more car choice. But it does mean that you will have less points in the championship. It does depend on what's your goal, really, of the championship. Some people race for points, some people race just for fun. It's completely up to you with Sim Racing Online. And I've just noticed that my map is the wrong way around. So I'm going to try and make sure that I turn it around so I'm looking at the same thing. So it'll be strange because I've got a cheat sheet of some of the corners. See if I can get it around the right way. There we go. That's perfect. Let's see what. Let's see if there's any yellow flags. So Tony Talviti running a little wide coming out of the loop. He does have a car just in front of him, which is that is the championship leader just in front. So there'll be a faint draft down the back straight. So fastest in the middle sector there. So he's possibly going to push the provisional pole a bit further away, but there's only just under 2 minutes to go. So did not improve that time, but still 3.5 for the gap between first and second. Michael Masaryk, can he improve from fourth? He stays in fourth for the current time. So at the moment we've got the whole field covered by about 2 seconds. And it is quite strange to see Julian Portes all the way back in 10th. Julian Portes has been a contender in this championship. Sometimes having a few accidents which has dropped him down the order, and has had to race with a damaged car, particularly for the last 2 rounds. I know that he got damaged early on and he had to nurse the car back to the finish. So running slightly wide, got that tyre hooked up on the curve, and it took a while to get that off. So you see that it's very wide on that final turn, but you have to make it back in because the infield does come back to the narrow grid. So Masaryk currently still in fourth. He's not got a lot of time to find to actually get up in front. Only about 0.2 of a second. So coming down to the final laps of the race. I'm not sure that many people have got more laps in them. So we've got 3 cars out on track at the moment. One of them is Michael Masaryk. Maina Bro is just coming into the pit, so now 2 out on the circuit. Kostas Kanzouras, see if he can improve from 6th place. He's a little bit down the order, so he'll be on the 3rd row at the moment. It's a personal best in the 2nd sector. Looking at the tyre running a little bit wide to apex, so I don't know. I think he abandoned that lap. He wasn't going to improve. And the last driver to come across the track, I think, is Michael Masaryk. So he stays in 3rd for this Grand Prix. So I can set the grid. And we can go through the starting order. So our grid is set. We are going to be running 60 minutes at Watkins Glen. That means it's going to be Over 60 laps. That is a long way to go. So, what am I looking for? I am looking for the starting order. That's what I'm looking for, the starting order. So, 10 drivers in the field. So, Tony Talviti first, Phil Brown second, Michael Masaryk pops into third, championship leader Maddie Shepherd in fourth. And we have Jim Cavallo in fifth, Costas Cansouras second in the championship in sixth, and then Lance Hagman, only a BRM runner, in seventh, with Romain Lebreau in eighth. Then our last two qualifiers are Bjorn Hagman in ninth, and then Julian Paws in 10th. So it does look like a lot of our drivers have decided to take the fastest cars for one of the quickest Grand Prix of the season so far, and one of the shortest. So we started off at Mount Panorama, which was quite a long, difficult circuit, and we're ending up at the shortest circuit on the calendar. So it should be a good old time. So let's switch over to see what our drivers are doing for warm-up. So 60 minutes around Watkins Glen. This track was ran in the 1967 championship, and particularly this layout was run in 1967. So from what I'm led to believe, this layout started off in 1948. That's when the circuit was actually produced. Looking down the list, it holds IMSA is one of the series. It obviously has the NASCAR Cup Series, NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, Trans Am Series, and it did hold the United States Grand Prix for quite a significant number of years, from 1961 to 1980. But I think it was purely financial and probably safety reasons that they stopped using Watkins Glen. They did make a few changes after this layout of the racetrack for Formula 1 as it got faster. But up until 1980, unfortunately, we did have a couple of driver fatalities in Formula 1 at Watkins Glen, one of which was Francois Sever in the Tyrrell, which meant that Jackie Stewart did retire that year. I believe it was 1970. Was it 1974? I believe. So it's good to see these cars going around this particular track. It suits it quite well. This being a circuit that they ran back then. You can find some good footage on YouTube of how close this circuit is to the actual real thing. It's close, but not too exact. So it's probably a bit faster than they actually had in the real world. So it's actually one of the drivers that won't be present today is actually our admin that's been running our series and has put this all together for us. John Van der Geest won't be here today because he has other engagements, so I hope that our drivers have remembered that he's not actually going to be present and they need to advance the session themselves. I would tell them, but I can't because I have the game on my screen. So drivers just out for just getting the warm-up laps in. I imagine that these cars are going to be very heavy and very difficult at the start of the race on 60 minutes of fuel. There is no fuel, there is no refueling, and we aren't expecting any pit stops. But 60 minutes around here, I would say we're probably expecting about 60, 63, 64 laps, maybe more than that. I'll have to see what the game actually estimates for me, but Nice sunny weather this time, not a hint of rain in the sky. So, as I say, I have really enjoyed broadcasting this season. We did start off in the 1950s in our broadcasts at some historic tracks, and then we've come to 1967. I'm hoping that maybe the admins have got up their sleeve, perhaps going to the 1970s. That would be a good progression. It seems to have inspired some of these drivers' imagination. I did learn last week that one of our drivers that was taking part was actually spectating back in the day in 1967, actually at the real Canadian Grand Prix. So he was actually driving in the thing that you spectated at all those years ago. So very interesting to hear people's experience. Right, so we have gone to the grid. Session has changed, so remember we are on a little bit of an incline, so drivers are going to have to be very wary of how they get off the line. So at the front of the grid, so Tony Daviti in his Ferrari. He is one of two Ferraris in the field, so let's hope no one bogs down. Let's hope everyone gets a good start and gets through the slight roll on the start from Phil Brown. That means he gets a little bit of a tardy start, and Matty Shepherd from the second row comes straight through to the lead straight away. Two drivers left on the grid, which is Lars Hagman, I believe. He may have stalled it, I think. So down the front straight for the first time. The two Lotus drivers are away. As I say it, there is a car on fire, and I don't know who that is. That is a Honda. Is that Phil Brown? That is indeed Phil Brown. So Phil Brown has instantly launched his Honda there. That's unfortunate. Maybe over-revving on the line. But that is all over Phil Brown, even before we get through lap 1. So Julian Pauls from the back of the grid has made it up to 6th place. So that's a good start from Phil Brown. But Tony Daviti from pole didn't get away very well, and he's down to 3rd place. But looking from the track map, the top 3 are absolutely away. Shepherd leads, Kanzuris in 2nd in the 2 Lotuses, and then we have Daviti just behind that in the Ferrari, and then we have a gaggle of cars for 4th, 5th and 6th here. So Julien Paul is one of our other French drivers. You can see that light blue Matra inspired car, so he is chasing Michael Masaryk. Now looking at the estimate, it does say that we've got about 58 laps of this course now. I did say there might be some drafting down the back straight, so Masaryk puts his car in the centre of the track to try and defend, and he does so successfully. So remember, Maddie Shepherd, championship leader, does not have to win this, but she has to make sure she doesn't retire and get no points, because that would be disastrous. But Kostas Kanzuris, to win this championship, would actually need to win if she does retire. So I'd imagine that's why he got a good start. He wants to be up front, maybe put Andy Shepherd under a bit of pressure. But we are in a pitched battle between Julien Pauls and Michael Masaryk. So Michael Masaryk cut to that inside line. Slight lock up coming down into the loop. Gets a slower exit. Now Julien Pauls takes a double dip of draft. Tries around the outside. No room there. So you have to be very, very brave. Make sure you have a gap. Now remember that even if you got around the outside on that corner there, you'd be on the inside for the next one, but then you'd be on the outside for the one after that. So maybe nearly catching Masaryk napping there. Putting the nose up the inside. Julian Bors has got to be very careful putting that nose where it's not needed or where there's not a gap. Wait to the main straight up the top of the hill. The car becomes very light and you don't want to run wide onto that grass either. So Julian Bors aggressive early on. Coming down into this loop section, you've got to get the braking absolutely right. And an up and under for Julian Bors as Michael Masaryk had to take that corner very, very shallow, which meant that he was on the edge of braking. So that was very unfortunate there. Tried to get up the inside. I don't know if there was enough space, so now he's got to wait for Julian Bors to get going again. So both these drivers, because they came together, have got to wait for the rest of the field to go through. So unfortunately another accident from Julian Bors, which means that good start has now been wasted. He's now down to 9th place, way out of the points. So Romain Brabham now up to 6th place in his Honda, the last of the points currently. So Tony Tavuti still chases on in 3rd place. He hasn't been dropped. But Romain Brabham chases the other Ferrari of Bjorn Hagman. So we had a good tussle between these two drivers. They were quite well matched in some of the Grand Prix that we've had, and particularly at Motorsport they seem to be nose to tail for a lot of the Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Matty Shepherd is putting in fastest lap upon fastest lap, trying to get as big a lead as possible, but let's hope there are no technical problems that decide this championship. So Bjorn Hagman slightly slow out the final corner, but Romain Brabham has got to be very patient up the hill. So he needs to get a good exit out this right-hander of the S's. And perhaps get in the draft. So Bjorn Hagman doesn't feel like he wants to defend. Romain Brabham gets the overlap and he is through. So Honda power versus Ferrari. It does seem that the Honda does have a good straight line speed. Or at least maybe the draft effect was particularly good. But turnabout is fair play coming down the back straight. And Ferrari has the opportunity to draft up to the Honda. It seemed to get a little bit closer, but it did seem to gain as much as the Honda did on the Ferrari, so perhaps the Honda has a bit of a stronger engine. So just over 53 minutes to go. This Grand Prix is disappearing very, very quickly. So Bjorn Hagman possibly wanting to take it a little bit easier with the red line, not wanting to push this Ferrari engine too far. But these two battling on. Romain Brabham in 5th and Bjorn Hagman in 6th. It does mean that Lars Hagman, who did seem to stall on the line, did see him stationary on the line for a little bit in the BRM, is drafting up to the back of these two. Now you'll notice that Bjorn Hagman and Lars Hagman have the same surname. They are brothers, and sometimes they work together, sometimes they do not. So Lars Hagman comes to join the party. So now a three-way battle. Romain Brabham gets that apex all wrong in the final corner, but can easily pull away down the front straight. So let's see how the BRM out the back of this trio can draft up underneath the exhaust pipe of. And it does look like Bjorn Hagman has decided to give his brother a go. Maybe thinking about the bigger picture here. Probably knows that he's got a bit more pace. So he's instantly on the back of the Honda of Romain Brabham as they come down the back straight up towards the fast bend. So there is a race still going on out the front, but this is the closest battle on track at the moment. And it is still 4 points, so and this may be vital for championship order. So Romain Lebreau up the hill, slightly slower. It looks like Lars Hagman behind in that BRM has it slightly better hooked up. Let's see if he can actually draft past. He's getting closer. Down the inside, this is a very precarious place to pass. I did wonder whether Romain Lebreau was going to be stopping that car. He did very well to actually get it slowed down. It looked like he was coming in out the corner very, very quickly. But maybe he braked and held his breath because he was very close to the white line on the edge. And I think if you touch that white line, you're pretty much heading off to the scenery. I'm not sure whether you'd actually end up vaulting over the fence, or I have in the past landed on those hay bales. So again, a lock up into the final turn, but not enough space for Lars Hagman to gain any momentum. It's got to be very patient up this hill. So basically a slingshot out these two bends. So he's going to have perhaps another go. So a bit earlier this time, he's able to get past. But who's braver on the brakes up the inside? So it looks like Romain Lebreau didn't feel like braking as late as he did last time, but that means he can do the switchback on the exit. So Lars Hagman puts his car in the middle of the track. Romain Lebreau has got to be very brave on the brakes down into this fast right-hander. Doesn't feel like he wants to poke one up the inside there. It's not a lot of braking down into these two bends, so out braking is very, very difficult. So Lars Hagman now in front. Let's see if he can actually pull away. So these are the last 2 points positions on the track, 5th and 6th. So we're just under 50 minutes to go. Shepard leads, Kanzura second, Taubiti third, Cavallo in 4th, Lars Hagman in 5th with Romain Lebreau just behind. And Bjorn Hagman in that Ferrari is just keeping a little bit of a watching brief behind these two to see what happens. So the rest of the drivers have spaced out quite significantly. Julian Bors is still in this race after his earlier accident. But he's out the back, but Romain Lebreau does a good job at braking down into that turn. Is he got an overlap into the final turn? He does so. So this battle could continue for the entire race, and good side-by-side racing through some of these corners. You can hear that Lars Hagman is playing with that throttle through coming up the hill, and doesn't want to go full throttle. So again, side by side down into the loop. Now I do believe that Lars Hagman has been one of those drivers that has blown a couple of engines this season. I think he was one of the Lotus engines that went bang last time out, so see if he can get an overlap into this corner. He cannot. He's confident on brakes, or this car, this BRM is not as strong on the brakes as the Honda ahead of him. So the gap for the lead is now up to 6 seconds at its point in time. Shepard would win the championship with the way the points are, but the nearest championship contender is in second. Kanzurus would have to win the race, and Shepard would have to retire, but anything can happen in these races. But it has been dramatic in the late stages. Either driver fatigue comes in, or perhaps machinery fatigue, because we have had some late retirements to do with car fatigue. So Lars Hagman gaining in what is the back straight, but can't quite get past. Does he feel like sending one up the inside here? Not quite. So he's still not dropping Bjorn Hagman just behind this battle. In fact, I think Bjorn Hagman, is that Bjorn Hagman in the pits? No, I think that's a little bit of a spin, so I think Bjorn Hagman spun to the infield there. So again, swapping places up the front straight. Lars Hagman able to get in front just before the braking zone. You've got to be very careful because the braking zone is just either just before and just after that crest. So good battle between these two. The circuit providing good ways to get a draft pass and then defend through the slower sweepers. There are no particular hard stopping points on this circuit. Now you can see creeping up in the background there, we can see Masaryk in the Eagle. So Romain Lebreau, now he's dropped back a bit. Masaryk might find a chance to get that remaining point on the board. So looking at my cheat sheet, championship table. So Masaryk is still in third in the championship at this point in time. He's got 16 points. He's not able to catch the top two unless something really dramatic happens. But he is safe in third in the championship by about 4 points. So as long as he beats, as long as he doesn't fall behind and lose 4 points to Julian Paws, then he should clinch third in the championship. So now Romain Lebreau has now got an Eagle in for company. So that's a very interesting place to pass. That was a very tight place to pass. I thought he had a little bit of room. I thought they could have gone maybe side by side, but maybe lag was involved as well there. So Michael Masaryk has now actually fallen back into the clutches of Julian Paws, who now retakes the place. So what was going to be a championship point is now dropped out of the championship points. And Romain Lebreau continues on his way. So Masaryk, he was able to win in round 4. Round 4 was Clermont-Ferrand. If I've got my note, round 4 was Fuji. So he was able to win at Fuji, where other people struck problems. I believe it was a very dominant win. We didn't see a lot of him. But, so out front it's Julian Paws in the Matra coloured Eagle. But the traditional looking Eagle just behind. Now, is that one of the leaders just behind? I believe it is. So these two drivers are about to be lapped. With just under a quarter of the race already gone. So I suppose a symptom of this circuit being so small in lap time, because we are doing sub 1 minute. So Michael Masaryk and Julian Paws have already had a collision this time in this Grand Prix, so maybe Masaryk is trying to pick his spot of where he wants to pass. So Maddie Shepherd now pops into the 58s, so 58.97, fastest lap of the race. So he was able to drive past Romain Lebreau quite easily. But he seems to be struggling. Maybe his car might be a little bit damaged. He did tangle his suspension a little bit. So down into the fast bend they come. Into the last 90. So Masaryk slightly faster than Paul was coming through the final turn, but losing up the S's. But that is Maddie Shepherd behind. That is our championship leader and the leader of the race. So maybe that Michael Masaryk could use this chance to perhaps use the leader as a pick. If he lets her pass in the right place. He does get the braking wrong in the loop. That's not the best place to get your braking wrong. It is a bit bumpy through there. It does look like it's pulling to one side. So, pulls into the leader's draft. Now perhaps when Romain Lebreau opens the door for the leader, depends whether Masaryk is close enough. Not quite. I think he saw a chance. It's just the wrong place that Romain Lebreau was caught. If it was anywhere else on the circuit, I think possibly Masaryk would have got through. But not this time. So 40 minutes to go. A significant portion of this race. So Bjorn Hagman has come into the pits. Hopefully that's not to retire. He was a bit well, as I say it, he does DNF. He was quite far off the back of the field. I don't think he had any particular damage, because I thought he just span to the infield, but he was quite far off the back of the field. So perhaps he thought his evening was better spent elsewhere. Kind of a shame really, because anything can happen in the next 40 minutes. It has done in these previous races. We've had maybe sometimes a bit of a lull in the middle of the race, but the end of the race has always been rather dramatic. So the leader has lapped up to 7th place on the circuit and is not far off passing 6th place. Romain Lebreau gets it absolutely sideways coming through the loop. So Masaryk, Masaryk got caught out by the slowing Lebreau. He couldn't quite get it off that corner, so he pushed down on the gas pedal. But unfortunately the rear of Lebreau's car was either mid-gear change, I don't know if he missed a gear. It looked like he was maybe trying to get the power down, but he couldn't, because he was a little bit out of shape in the loop. So Masaryk having... forgive me, it's not actually Lebreau, it's Paws in front. My bad. Lebreau and Paws have very similar cars in this race and very similar colours, so apologies. Lebreau is actually in the Honda this time, but they are both light blue, both French drivers, and their Marcher-inspired paint jobs. So let's take a little bit of a break on this battle. It seems to have cooled off a little. And we go up to the lead here. So Maddie Shepherd has pulled out now a 10-second lead from Costas Kanzouras. So coming through the traffic, both of them. So as Maddie Shepherd comes through the final turn, Costas Kanzouras is coming through the last couple of bends. So the top three are quite spread out. So coming across the stripe, and JWT come through the last turn. So Romain Lebreau now has dropped back into the hands of Julian Paws. Julian Paws has caught his Maybe you can call him his teammate. And Julian Paws goes around. Commentator's curse, and he hits the inside wall. That's probably not going to be insignificant damage. So it looked like he locked the rears coming into the loop. So Masaryk has a free run, a free place. And now he can catch Lebreau in front. So just over half distance. 36 minutes to go. This is the closest battle on the track at the moment. The lead is up to 14 seconds. I don't know if something happened to Kanzouras. Perhaps it couldn't have been lapped cars. He's not actually near any. So Masaryk hitting the grass on the outside. Don't want to do that too much, otherwise it will pull you off the circuit. So battle resumes. So they had a collision up the S's, and Masaryk is able to close back in on Lebreau. So perhaps a go on the brakes. No, it doesn't feel like there's enough braking into that turn there. So will he try again up the S's, or will he think again? Lebreau is rocking that left front tyre coming into the last bend there, and getting a little bit out of shape. So Masaryk has possibly got to bear that in mind, that he could possibly push Lebreau into a mistake into the final few turns and gain some momentum up here, because there seems to be a good passing place. Although risky on the inside, it seems to be where all the passing has happened. He's got to be very careful on the brakes as he comes off down the hill. He does exactly the same as Julian Paws, but unfortunately Lebreau gets caught up in it, and thankfully he didn't pop up onto those bales, because I've done that before and that would have been race over. So a pirouette for Masaryk. Unfortunately, Romain Lebreau didn't really have anywhere to go on the outside. He just had to take avoiding action. So not a good place to spin. So now that Romain Lebreau has rejoined, he has Julian Paws for company. So looking at the gap between second and third, it's close to about 2.6 seconds. This is Jim Cavallo. We haven't seen a lot of Jim Cavallo this race because he's been plugging away in fourth place. It would be a good result for Jim Cavallo if he can finish there. Wasn't with us last time out at Mosport, but so our sole Ferrari in the race now. Third place Tony Talviti, pole sitter for this race. Did get away slightly slower than these Lotuses. Matty Shepherd had an absolute rocket start from the second row and was through to the lead by turn one. I think possibly Talviti is closing on Kanzouras in front. You can see a lapped car is involved just in front of us. So perhaps Kanzouras may catch that lapped car in the wrong place, giving Tony Talviti a little bit of a chance. And we've had our third retirement of the race. Julian Paws has decided to call it a day. I don't know if that was due to a spin or damage. So, only 7 drivers left. Only one more than our, I believe it was Fuji in round 4. Had the biggest attrition. We only had 6 drivers finish that race. We are closing in on that record. So Talviti closing in on Kanzouras for second place. So perhaps it does look like Kanzouras dipped into the 1 minute range on lap time. So perhaps a slight mistake has dropped him back into the hands of Talviti. So we've had one battle replaced with another. So Tavetti is now within a second. I think this is the first time he's been close to anybody this entire race. But it took him a while to get going. Just half of the race. I was holding my breath there because I saw a locked wheel coming into the loop, but he managed to keep it off the grass. That would have possibly been race ending if he had hit the grass there. So, closest battle on track at the moment between second and third. So that car ahead of us in the Lotus, that is Kanzouras. They are actually in the position of the championship. Kanzouras second in the championship. Tony Tavetti doesn't actually need... I mean, these points would be very, very useful to him. He's currently fifth in the championship at the moment. So just notice as well that obviously now that Prix has retired and he will get no points from this race, does mean that he is vulnerable to drivers behind him in the championship. So he was fourth in the championship. I think he's possibly going to lose that. Along with Bjorn Hagman is not going to score this time out. And Phil Brown also. So I'm marking them down on my list. So there's possibly going to be some swapping around. Fifth place of Hagman is stopped out on circuit at the moment. He is. Oh, it's another engine gone for Lars Hagman. So I'm sorry to say that BRM has decided to give up. As we come to the battle between second and third, Tony Tavetti decides to try an outbrake over the top of the hill. He looks slightly cautious and he's drifting a little bit wide. Maybe Kanzouras could have given him a little bit more space because they were side by side there. I did see Tavetti was trying to keep the inside line, but he wasn't as possibly as close to the apex as he wanted to be, so maybe drifted a little into Kanzouras. But Kanzouras did him no favours by possibly taking a tighter second apex there. So, we now only have 6 drivers, so that poor BRM has decided that it wants no more of this race. So now I can mark Lars Hagman out of the points. He's going to be classified in 7th place and no points for him. So Tony Tavetti has got to do that all again, so he caught up to Kanzouras. He did all the hard work over the first half of this race, and he's now got to do... He's only got to catch about 1.82 seconds, so it's not an awful lot. So 6th place of Romain Lebreau is now out on his own. Mazurek has pulled away ahead of him. So all drivers currently will score points as it sits. As we have 9 points for first, 6 for second, 4 for third, and 3, 2 and 1. So Tavetti has got to catch Kanzouras. He wants that place back. Currently sits at the moment. The championship would go the way of Shepherd. Unless anything dramatic happens, I don't want to curse these drivers too much. I have in the past. So Watkins Glen in this particular layout, very, very short. Start finish straight is in a completely different place to the present day. So that short straight where the grid is on this circuit does actually exist in the modern circuit, but there's no start-finish straight on it. They outgrew that part. So, back into the slipstream of the Lotus ahead. So Tony Daviti has tried to pass up the inside of the loop. So I wonder whether he will feel about having another go in that place, or perhaps try somewhere else. It seems to be one of the preferred passing places. But with all this battle in between second and third, see two differing lines coming up the hill. Daviti wanted to get on the throttle, but couldn't quite do it. Lotus Power pulling away. So maybe he could push Kanzouris into braking a bit late into the loop, but he's got a second chance down the back straight. But whilst all this is happening, 25 seconds have elapsed between second and first. So Tauriti looks like he's possibly showing himself in the mirrors of the car in front. So there's one of the mistakes, but it's not going to put off, or not going to give a gap big enough for a Ferrari to fit through, but it may slow up Kanzouris going up the hill. So you could see that Tony Tauriti was possibly on and off the throttle, trying to get a good exit up here. So again, in the draft, Kanzouris doesn't feel like he needs to go defensive now. Can Tauriti keep a good inside line? This is a carbon copy of before, and Kanzouris was a little bit cheeky of coming back to the apex there. And thankfully they didn't tangle wheels. They interlocked wheels for a little bit, and I was a little bit worried there was going to be a slight collision, but drivers were close, but they didn't collide in the end, so that was good driving by both of them. So now Kanzouris down to third place. His championship chances are ebbing away. So does he have anything for Tauriti? Or is Tauriti just going to pull away in front? So Tauriti perhaps pulling to the inside there, getting a little bit of oversteer coming out from the top of the hill, or perhaps wanting to break the draft, because that Lotus is strong in a straight line. So Kanzouris running slightly wide coming out of the loop. Okay, that gap has stayed around 0.7 of a second throughout this lap, so he's able to keep in tow. Needs to be within about 0.5, 0.6 per second to get the wisps of draft. So Shepard now leads 30 seconds with just over 22 minutes to go. So it's a Lotus in first, a Ferrari in second, and a Lotus in third. So what I wanted to actually look up, who actually won the US Grand Prix back in '67. And I believe it was Jim Clark. Two Lotuses actually qualified on the front row, so Graham Hill and Jim Clark qualified on the front row, and it finished that way. Jim Clark and Graham Hill finished the race. They managed to do 108 laps for the Grand Prix. So we're going to do something very, very similar. But it was a Brabham in third. We don't have any Brabhams on the grid, as far as I know. We have had a few Brabhams being used this season, but knocked this time out. So, Maddie Shepherd out front. Since she got away in that first portion of the race, she hasn't really looked back. Michael Masaryk has been in the thick of it throughout this Grand Prix. A couple of collisions with a couple of drivers. I felt that some of them are a little bit 50-50. Maybe some of them a bit on Masaryk's side being a bit opportunistic, but he is back to 5th place, but he's down on 4th. So Romain Navarro looks like the car is getting a little bit hard to handle now the fuel level is coming down. And as I say, we've had a few of these Grand Prix where I think the handling of these cars perhaps changed quite significantly later on in the race, either fuel load or really be tyre wear too much, because these tyres do not wear very significantly. But possibly damage comes into play, because it's very easy to nudge an Armco barrier and knock the tracking of the suspension out, which would mean car or any of the cars would not like going either left in one way, left or right, very well. You could kind of hope that if you do bend the tracking, that you'd hope that the tracking wouldn't go out on the, so that you'd need to be able to make right turns, because it is a clockwise circuit. So 20 minutes remaining. Shepherd still leads. A big gap between Shepherd and second place Tao Viti is 30 seconds. And that gap has extended between second and third. So I wonder where Kanzuris is just settling for third. He wouldn't change the championship significantly. He possibly wasn't going to be caught for second place from my calculations. I'm filling in my spreadsheet all the time so I can keep myself updated on what's going on. So, other things that are happening with Sim Racing Online. This is our last race of the 1967 season. We do generally, our most popular sim that we use is R Factor 2, but we're not. We do use a Assetto Corsa and sometimes the Automobilista 2. The Mon Ultima is another sim that we've branched out into. So series races that are coming up. There is a long track series with Assetto Corsa. The next round of that will be on Saturday, May the 30th. So I believe that is GT cars around some longer circuits, some longer historic circuits. And then we have the Asian Le Mans series on the Sunday, May the 31st. That's with R Factor 2. And I think it needs a few more numbers in there. I can't remember whether they're running GTEs or LMPs for that one. And then on June the 2nd, that's a Tuesday, there's a Porsche Cayman GT4 World Cup. That's an Automobilista 2. Then we have the Porsche 992 Cup. That takes place on Saturday, the next round on Saturday, June the 6th. It's in R Factor 2. And then we have a new series starting on the 23rd of June, which is the GT PC C2 and GT Revival Multiclass. So we're waiting for numbers for that. So if you like classic GT cars and old Group C cars, that might be the series for you. Then the last thing on the list, we have a special event, the Indy 250. So we're going to be doing some oval racing in R Factor 2, which will start on the 18th of July. So that will be using the modern Indy car. I believe it's the IR18, is it? Either that or it might be something a little bit newer. Can't remember. So that's what Sim Racing Online is up to. Be sure to go to simracingonline.co.uk if you want to join us. More drivers, the better. So Remain the Bro continues in 6th place. You can see from the timing tower all of our drivers are quite significantly spaced out. So it's going to come down to driver concentration and car reliability, not driver reliability as such. We have already seen that Phil Brown was one of our first drivers to retire due to, I think he popped the engine on the first lap, didn't even make the first lap, so that Honda engine possibly being over-revved on the start and overheated, or perhaps changed down too many gears coming down into the loop for the first time. So that was quite a dramatic fire at the start. Not sure of the reasons why Bjorn Hagman retired, but he was out in 9th place after a little bit of a spin. Don't think he had any damage or significant damage. And then we had Julian Pors retiring from 8th place. May have had damage from an earlier spin and an earlier collision. So we didn't see where he retired on screen, but Lance Hagman, we know for a fact that that BRM engine went up in flames in the loop section, so he retired and finished 7th. So all of our drivers 1 to 6 will score points, even if there are retirements from here on out. I imagine with just under 15 minutes to go, a lot of the drivers trying to keep concentration, trying to remember not to hit that red line too much. We have had a couple of drivers that have commented on it's very easy to change down too many gears and accidentally over-rev these cars. That doesn't do engine health very well at all. But it's been very interesting watching these cars, particularly when our drivers have had to take a different car for each round. So there's a little bit of strategy involved with what car everyone decided to take for each round, because we've had a mixture of circuits. We've had longer circuits with longer straights, and we've had tighter circuits, but this is the shortest circuit on the calendar that is our finale. So the shortest and the fastest, so lap times under 1 minute. So Taviti coming through the loop. So as I say at the start of this broadcast, this track pretty much follows what would have been around in the game Grand Prix Legends. So when that was released back in, I believe, 1999, demos were released with this track. And it was possibly the Ferrari that got released with it. I know that when I traded a demo of it, it was Monza that was included, but so Remain the Bro, I believe, just about to be lapped by possibly Cavallo. No, it can't be Cavallo. No, he's going to be lapped by Masaryk, so he's going to be, he must a little bit of a kick in the teeth there, because he's going to be lapped, 6th place going to be lapped by 5th. So these two were once battling a few, I'd say about 15 minutes ago, but now they are putting a lap on each other. So since Talviti has taken 2nd place, he has pulled away. 14.5 seconds is the gap to 3rd. I'm looking at a gap to 4th. 9.3 seconds. Jim Cavallo has pretty much been anonymous for this entire race. Kept his nose clean. Just been plugging away in 4th. So a lap being put on these two. So this isn't for position. Hopefully the road doesn't run too wide. Now I forgot to do this at the start of the race, but it's actually worth checking out what our biggest winners and losers of the first portion of this race with just over 11 minutes to go. So Shepherd and Kanzurus did gain 3 positions from where they started. I'm not sure that's entirely true. No, yeah, that seems quite accurate. I think Shepherd qualified 4th from the second row all the way to the lead. And unfortunately the driver that lost a number of places, or the most places, the drivers that are left in the field, Mazarek has lost 2 positions, so he started in 3rd. Unfortunately he has gone backwards due to accidents and spins. So just over 10 minutes to go. Now I was just going through my head about tracks that would have been also good to try with these cars. The last 2 circuits that we've had on the calendar for this series have been circuits that these cars actually did take place in their Grand Prix in their country. So the Canadian Grand Prix last week and the American Grand Prix this week. But Fuji 1968 F1 cars did not race around that circuit at that particular time. We also had Clermont-Ferrand. That was a Formula 1 circuit, but again the 67 cars did not race around there. Because I believe in 1967 the French Grand Prix was Le Mans Bugatti. So, Cavallo. I thought perhaps there was someone catching Cavallo there, but that is a lapped car, so I think the leader is just about to lap up to 4th place. So a bit of oversteer coming through that wider turn there. I was holding my breath, hoping that didn't go any wider than that. The last thing she wants to do is go a proper right at the end. Although saying that, I think if Maddie Shepherd does come to grief, I think she would win on countback. Kansas would need to win, wouldn't it? Yeah. Because Maddie Shepherd has won 3 races this season, I believe. And this will be her 4th. So a dominant showing from Shepherd this season. In the debriefs I've noticed that she has found some of the rounds a bit tough, particularly some of the layouts with some of the bumps, because these cars can be a bit squirrely on the bumps, quite hard to handle. But we've had some drivers that have just been consistent, just plugging away. Kanzurus has got a win this season, I think, looking back. Nope, he hasn't, but his consistency has meant that he is going to take 2nd in the championship. His lowest score, his lowest finishing was the 2nd round in 4th, so he's never been off the podium apart from the 2nd round. 3 second places, and if they finish where they are, 2 thirds. So a good consistent run from Kanzurus is going to seal him 2nd in the championship. So Jim Cavallo looking down at the points. He's not been here for all of the rounds of this championship, but according to my calculations he will possibly get 7th in the championship. But just by coincidence or just by skill level, he has competed in 3 races and he's finished 4th in all 3 of them. So he's probably got bored of 4th. He would maybe prefer something else, but consistent. So Jim Cavallo possibly don't want to be messing with the leader here. So is Jim Cavallo maybe thinking that he wants to unlap himself? So I'm looking at the that is 3rd. That is Kanzura. This is for position. I thought that was actually Maddie Shepherd that was in the Lotus there. This is actually between 3rd and 4th. So Jim Cavallo could have a podium on his hands here. We do have Lebro possibly stopped in the S's coming up here. So these drivers are going to come upon a very slow Honda. And they might... So it looks like Kanzuris is really struggling to get the power down on the exit of the S's, catching Jim Cavallo out. So Jim Cavallo does have a race on his hands, but that is the leader behind. So does the leader actually want to get involved in this? Could spoil our battle between 3rd and 4th here. So Cavallo is possibly not watching his mirrors. He's possibly looking at overtaking Kanzuris in front. So the leader has got to be very, very careful. So Cavallo going for another go down the inside. Now, we did see last lap that Kanzuris could not get the power down out the S's. Let's see if Cavallo is wise to it this time. No, he isn't. That is unfortunately over and out. So that will put his pay to his chances for 3rd. It did look like Kanzuris was particularly slowing up the hill, which was catching out Cavallo. So possibly Kanzuris is worrying a little bit about oversteer on exit there. I'm actually surprised that Cavallo's still got his wheels. So that was unfortunate. That was shaping up to be a good battle there. So the leader has lapped all the way up to 3rd place on the road. Main the bro coming out of the S's. He will be the next driver to have another lap put on him. The leader is just behind, so Cavallo survived. It would have been a shame if he had retired with only about 4 minutes to go. So Tony Talviti plugging on in 2nd place. He's pretty much safe from in front and behind. So I wonder whether Kanzuris maybe particularly had some handling issues. It seemed like he was slow coming off the S's. See a couple of cars having a bit more oversteer. So 2.5 minutes to go. Survival is the key. Maddie Shepherd coming through the S's, just about to put another lap on Romain Lebro. Kanzuris survives another lap. I don't think Tauriti will be too unhappy with reclaiming 2nd place. He did start on pole this time. But Maddie Shepherd was able to come through to the lead from the 2nd row. It did take about 30 minutes of the race, I think, for Taubiti to get a little bit warmed up. And Kanzurus did come back towards him, and he was able to pass. And then from then on, Kanzurus has dropped back a little. So maybe he's suffering from handling issues late on in the race. So, leader has just crossed the line. There will be 2 laps to go. Unfortunately, we won't hear from the drivers. I won't get the briefing of how this Grand Prix went for the drivers. So I can only assume that some of the drivers found this particularly tough. A different kind of challenge from some of the other circuits on the calendar. As I say, it's been the fastest and the shortest on the calendar. Long sweeping turns. Slowest corner on the track, I believe, is the second gear right-hander. But the rest of the corners are about third or fourth gear. So the leader's crossed the line, and this will be Maddie Shepherd's last lap. So up the front straight for the final time. Bro, after the action early on in the race, has been pretty much alone at the back in 6th, but he will get a point out of this. So Maddie Shepherd coming down the back straight towards the final couple of corners, as is Kanzurus. Kanzurus will be not have to do an extra lap because he has been lapped. Maddie Shepherd coming down to what is the final corner. Slight lock up. And a slight pause. I'm slightly worried. I'm hoping this is going to come back to me, and indeed it did. So Maddie Shepherd did cross the line in the end. It was a photo finish. So Maddie Shepherd comes across the line. Taubiti does grab second. Kanzurus third. Cavallo comes home in 4th. Azaric 5th. And Lebro in 6th. Right, so I'm a bit out of breath after that. What furious activity. Furious activity. We did come to the same amount of non-finishes as we had, or we equaled the best non-finishers that we had at Fuji. So only 6 finishers at the end of this race. But see, session results. So Maddie Shepherd came away with the win in the end. I'm going to double check that I've got these correctly. Tony Taubiti did come away with second. Pole sitter, but managed to come back and earn that second place from Kanzurus, who seemed to have handling issues towards the end, but does grab that final place on the podium. Cavallo, a late accident, possibly trying to avoid a slow Kanzurus coming up the hill, but rolled over and survived to come home in 4th. Mazaric with a couple of spins and a couple of accidents, perhaps ruining the day, because he did have the pace to perhaps be up in the top 3 today, but unfortunately dropped back to 5th in the end. Also, Romain Lebro was in the thick of it at the start, and he comes home in 6th. The Ono Honda finishing this race. Then we have our non-finishers. Lars Hagman, the BRM expired in a big way. We saw it on fire coming up the loop. And then we have Julian Paws. Not sure of the reason for the retirement there, but will come home in 8th. Bjorn Hagman in 9th. Not sure of his reason for retirement either. But bringing that Ferrari home would have been good, but unfortunately not this time out. Just trying to find where I've put my overlays, but I can't find them. It's under O. There we go. O for overlays. Right, okay. So our last of our non-finishers. Unfortunately, Phil Brown's Honda engine expired on the first lap, so he wasn't able to take part in what was a very furious end to the season. Fastest circuit and the shortest circuit, so I hope everyone enjoyed their time with these cars and on these tracks. So if I've done everything correctly, this should be the final standings. So looking at the top there, Matty Shepherd does come away with the win, 43 points in the end. I have done that completely wrong because I haven't put them in order of points. So I'm going to have to generate that again. Let's try that again, shall we? So we can get actually the official points in there. These will be non-official. Provisional, I should say. Right, let's try this again. That's better. There we go. So Matty Shepherd does win the championship provisionally out front, 43 points. That'll be her 4th win this season. Costas Kanzouris in the end does stay in 2nd. Tony Dialviti in 3rd. Level on points with Masaryk. Now it does say that he's ahead of Masaryk there. Now I'm trying to see what countback would be. Tony would win on countback because he's got a 2nd place and Masaryk hasn't. So that's correct. So Tony does grab 3rd in the end. Masaryk in 4th. Julian Paws unfortunately didn't score this time out, so drops down the order in the final round and grabs 5th in the championship. Only 1 point ahead of Lars Hagman. So if Lars Hagman had stayed in, possibly he would have swapped places with Julian Paws, but 6th place is all he's got. Jim Cavallo grabbed points this time out and ends up 7th in the championship. So taking advantage of a few no scores. And also Romain Lebro, I believe he was actually in 10th before this all started, so he comes up 2 places to 8th with 3 points. Level on points with Bjorn Hamburger that did not score this time out. Now on countback, who would have come? So 5th place. I think Lebro. Yeah, that should be correct because. Oh no. 5th place each, 6th place each, 7th place each. I think possibly Romain Lebro has it because he's finished more races. But there we go. And the last of our, top 10 of our drivers is Phil Brown, only scoring 2 points this season. So his only point score was actually at round 5. But there we go. So a very interesting Grand Prix and a very interesting series for these 1967 cars. I've really enjoyed these cars and these historic tracks. It's been very interesting to go back in time. I've really enjoyed broadcasting this. So I've been your host, Neil Wood. If you want to join us, make sure you go to simracingonline.co.uk. Give our stream a like and possibly share it to your friends if you enjoyed what you saw. But simracing.co.uk, we do series in R Factor 2, Automobilista 2, Assetto Corsa. We are going out into Le Mans Ultimate as well. So we do run series all throughout the week. So we are European based, so bear that in mind if you are in a different time zone. But yeah, so thank you for watching, everybody. As I say, I've been your host, Neil Wood. Thank you for joining me for this series, and hopefully we'll see you on track next time. Thanks for watching.